What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. Travis Eldridge back with you again this week, and we have a treat of an interview. It's always fun to catch up with UAlbany head coach Scott Marr. Had a chance to catch up with him for a while earlier today, so we'll have that interview for you coming up. Just got a contract extension this week, so we'll talk about that, and we go all over the place. Talk about his former player Connor Fields, what he's doing in the NLL so far this year. Also, he shares a great story about what Zed Williams did this past weekend at Haudenosaunee Nationals tryouts for the 2023 World Championships coming up next summer. You will not want to miss that story, so make sure you stay tuned for head coach Scott Marr from UAlbany. We'll also look back our watch party interview this week, looking back at the 2016 win over Duke for former Harvard standout Morgan Cheek. So he'll join us to share his thoughts and memories about that upset over Duke, a game that took place at Hofstra back in 2016. So all that's coming up, but we're going to start this week with some of my favorite things I saw over the course of the last week. A lot of this happened over the weekend or earlier this week. So I got 4 things for you that really stand out to me in the sport of lacrosse or in the sports world that are related to lacrosse over the last week. We'll start with, speaking of tryouts for the 2023 World Championships, Team USA having their tryouts down in Florida this past weekend, their final tryout weekend prior to making the roster, essentially that close to 23 players that will represent the country at the World Championships in San Diego next summer. And Joe Nardella, if you haven't seen it on social media, Joe Nardella, the face-off man, throws a bounce pass to Will Manny throughout that tryout process in one of the scrimmages, and it's an unbelievable highlight. And it just got me thinking about both of these two guys and their journey in the hopes of making this World Championship roster. Because you look back at 2018, and these are both guys that were just on the outside looking in at that eventual 23-man roster that went over to Israel and won gold. Joe Nardella, at the time, was coming off an injury that he had suffered in the NLL season. Will Manny, one of those final cuts. Of course, you may remember he scored the game-winning goal for the NLL All-Stars in that exhibition game against Team USA in the NLL All-Star game in 2018, but he was on the wrong side of the cut line. Back at it again here 5 years later, trying to make the cut. Same thing for Nardella, a guy who certainly is in the mix at that face-off spot. So seeing the two of them connect on that play made me think of that, and also made me think of 2019 against Canada at the USA Lacrosse Fall Classic. The two of them connected the opposite way. It was Manny finding Nardella for what ended up being the game-winning goal in a dramatic comeback where Team USA scored 2 goals in the final 40 seconds to go from being down 1 to beating Canada in the late stages of that game. So the two of them once again connecting in a USA uniform, but this time Joe Nardella throwing a bounce pass. So that really stood out to me from the tryout weekend in Florida. Can't wait to see what that roster looks like here sometime soon. Speaking of Saturday and this past weekend, Army-Navy is must-watch every year. But for a lacrosse fan to look out there on the field and see Navy quarterback Xavier Arline, who, of course, was a standout high school lacrosse player and then went on to now play both football and lacrosse over the last year for Navy, to see him quarterbacking this Navy team in Army-Navy, after having watched him in the spring play for head coach Joe Amplo and the men's lacrosse team, and then see him back out there and being a star quarterback for Navy, was really, really cool as somebody who has watched now both his lacrosse career and his football career. And the one thing that stood out was the one pass that Xavier Arline threw. Comes in overtime, the first overtime session. He hadn't thrown a pass all game long, and he drops back, and he just drops a perfect pass in, 1-for-1, 25 yards and a touchdown. Now, Navy ultimately lost an absolute heartbreaker in that game, but you have to imagine Joe Amplo was smiling watching Xavier Arline star. He also ran for over 100 yards as the quarterback for Navy in that Army-Navy game. So it was really fun to watch that, and I cannot wait to hopefully see a healthy Xavier Arline out there on the lacrosse field this spring, because he is a special, special athlete, both on the football field And on the lacrosse field, I had a chance to see him playing lacrosse in high school. You could tell then he was a great athlete, and I hope he continues to see more of his lacrosse talent this spring as well, because he could be a real difference maker for Navy and what Joe Amplo is trying to build there with the Mids. Speaking of football/lacrosse players, big news early this week for the University of Virginia as they have added the former #1 overall recruit Ricky Maizan to their roster for this spring. Maizan spending the last several years playing linebacker at Stanford, and he wasn't just on the roster. This dude was playing linebacker at Stanford in the Pac-12. He was a guy who was considered top 3 or 4 teams in the Pac-12, but by some certain publications, he was a 4th-team linebacker, according to certain publications over the last couple of years. So he was a stud out there. And remember, he was the #1 overall recruit, as rated by Ty Zanders back his junior year of high school. At that point, he was committed to play lacrosse for Joe Bresci in North Carolina. Obviously, opted to decide to go to the football route, play football at a great institution like Stanford, but now opting to pursue that lacrosse career. He picks Virginia, which, I mean, to talk about just continuing to load up on size and athleticism in the midfield. I mean, they're adding a guy who's 6'2", 230 pounds in the midfield. Let's just, everybody collectively say some prayers for defensive midfields around the ACC that are going to have to go up against him. I mean, this is an elite athlete joining this Virginia lacrosse program. And I remember standing here in the studio, it was back in September 2016. I was standing in studio next to Ty Zanders, who at the time was unveiling the top 100 recruits in the class of 2018. At that point, it was their junior year, so this is a big unveiling. Top 100 players that were entering their junior seasons of high school lacrosse. And this is what Ty Zanders said at the time in our recruiting rundown episode. Quote, "It's almost scary to think, if he's this good now, where will he be in 2 or 3 years? An eye-popping athlete." Well, 2 or 3 years later, he's playing football at Stanford. Now you look at it 6 years later, and he is going to be, I think, an elite player for Virginia, because you have to imagine a guy of this athletic ability, even if he hasn't picked up a lacrosse stick in a number of years, which I'm assuming he maybe dabbled a bit here and there. The athleticism alone should get him on the field, and then the skills continue to come back as he starts to work at it. Look out for Virginia's midfield with that addition. This is a big pickup for Lars Tiffany. I cannot wait to see him out there. And once again, good luck to the defensive midfields across the ACC and whoever's got Virginia on their schedule, because that is going to be a tall, tall task to try to match up with him. He made the bull dodge kind of his statement. If you go back and look at his high school recruiting tape, I mean, he just knocked guys over, like running over dudes in the midfield. So keep an eye on Ricky Maizan. Even if he just plays defensive midfield, and he was a good offensive player in high school. That was one of the reasons he got to the #1 recruit in the country, because he refined some of those offensive skills. Even if they just put him in the defensive midfield and runs 2 ways, Virginia's getting a good one. All right, final thing one of the best things I saw over the course of this past week, Connor Fields is at it again. So we highlighted Connor Fields last week. We were talking with Jake Elliott, talking about week 1 in the NLL. And not only did he just follow it up, but the Rochester Nighthawks, his new team, they win again. They beat Toronto this week in a statement win, I think, in the East, because some people are picking the Toronto Rock. This is an impressive Rock roster. Some people are picking the Rock to win the East this year. Well, let's keep an eye on the Nighthawks, because they are now 2-0 atop the East Division standings, of course. Connor Fields goes off for 4 goals, 3 assists, another 7 points. He's currently tied for second in the NLL with 8 goals through 2 games. And we talked about this with Jake. In San Diego, he wasn't quite the guy. He was coming back from injury there and early on in his NLL career. Then he goes to Buffalo, and obviously the Bandits have an assortment of offensive talent, so he wasn't the guy there. He gets left unprotected by Buffalo, ends up with Rochester here with the Nighthawks. And look at what we've got now with Connor Fields being the guy. I mean, they've put the confidence in Connor Fields that, hey, you know, if he's our number one guy, we can win. And he's paying it off. We saw it when he was at UAlbany, this special talent he's got. Maybe a little chip on his shoulder from what happened being left unprotected, and he is proving it to the rest of the league that he can be a number one offensive player on a forward group. And this is an impressive start for him, an impressive start for Rochester. Keep an eye on the Nighthawks. This is an East that is really full of talent when you look at even the teams that were toward the bottom, a team like New York, who's got Jeff Teat showing out. I mean, they got Lyle Thompson in Georgia. These are teams that didn't make the playoffs a year ago. A lot of talent around the East. And keep an eye now on Rochester. Off to a hot start, 2-0. That's a good way to kick things off here in 2022-23. So speaking of Connor Fields, let's catch up with his former coach, head coach at the University of Albany, Scott Marr. Had a chance to catch up with him on an assortment of topics, including getting ready for this 2023 season earlier today.
This segment of Lacrosse Now is brought to you by Watch Dingo.
So as we continue to get ready for the 2023 spring season, we got UAlbany head coach Scott Marr joining us, fresh off a contract extension at UAlbany. It'll keep him there through 2026. Congrats. What's it been about this relationship with UAlbany that just makes it such a home, special place for you?
First of all, thank you. Appreciate that. You know, it's been a great fit for me and my family, you know, since we moved up there, you know, but the atmosphere and the support, you know, that I get from our administration, from our president, you know, I've been, you know, this is my 23rd year this year, you know, and I've seen everything change. You know, I got there, we had no fields, we had really no facilities at all. Now I feel like we have one of the best college lacrosse venues in the country. You know, hosting an NCAA tournament game this year, hosting the PLL. You know, I think we've really, you know, the support from the city, from the area, the capital region's been tremendous. You know, when I first got to Albany, there was about 12 teams, I think, playing high school lacrosse. Now I was like 38. So we've kind of grown with the area, which is kind of unique in New York. You would think that everybody in New York was already playing lacrosse, but for some reason, the Albany area just hadn't really been developed yet. So it's been fun to grow with the area, you know, and have a big part in the growth, you know, and again, I've been super fortunate to have so many great, you know, people around me, my assistant coaches, you know, throughout the years, and you know, just being able to kind of produce coaches, you know, and have guys that played for me and stay on the staff and then move on and become coaches elsewhere. You know, I think anytime you get into coaching, you don't think you're going to stay somewhere for as long as you do. And, you know, you think 3 or 4 years, everybody was talking I was going to leave after a couple of years here and there. And it just kind of grew on me, you know, and I just created such great relationships with my early teams. And we had some early success in 2007. So, you know, it just became one of those things where I really wanted to see it through. And part of the reason, too, is I wanted my family and my kids to grow up and go to the same high school. Which they all did, and they went from K through 12 in the same spot. So, like I said, it's been a great opportunity for my family to grow and really thrive in that area. So, just really thankful and grateful for the university for again extending my contract and really giving me a chance to finish my career here at Albany. So.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the early days. I think it's still now in 2023. Like, I can't believe we're talking 2026. It has just to have been such a cool journey for you. You mentioned the facility, and for you to look up whether it was like the Chiefs home game this year where it's downpouring and you guys have a great crowd out there, or on some of these PLL weekends or the big NCAA tournament games you guys have hosted. What's it like to kind of look around when you have a second and look at that facility and how the community has embraced not only your team but also the sport?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It was just such a, you know, it's a great marriage. I just had so much fun being a part of it, you know, and being able to facilitate, you know, the PLL. And, you know, you think about our playoff game with North Carolina in 2017, 7,000 people. We hold the record for NCAA Division I first round by about 3,000 people. And that was in the pouring rain as well. So our fans are dedicated. I always tell our recruits, you know, when they come and we're up in the press box looking at the field, and how engaged our fans are, the knowledge that they have. They don't just cheer for goals. They cheer for a ground ball. They cheer for a good hit. They cheer for a save. They cheer for a clear. So they're really into the game, and the way the stadium itself is set up, it's right on top of you. So the fans, you really feel them. So again, you go back to that Cuse game, almost 5,000 people on a pouring. I mean, if it was a beautiful night, we would have 10,000 people. Which is a shame that it wasn't beautiful, but at the same time, we're pretty good in the rain, I think. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's been a great relationship with the community. Like I said, the growth in the area has been just tremendous since I came on board.
So let's talk about this year's team. We mentioned the Syracuse win last year, which was obviously a big spot in a year that was up and down. Well, where's this team at as you guys leave the fall and look ahead to the spring?
I would say much improved, and I think really kind of back on track to where we thought this group would be. It's taken us a little bit of time, with the COVID, and again, everybody was in that boat, but everybody reacted differently, and it affected people differently. Our senior class now, Graydon Hogg, Jake Bassino, Will Pepes, Elijah Gash, Declan Palangin. We have some really good horses back. As freshmen in 2020, we were 3-1 going into our Maryland game, and we lose to Maryland by a goal. And those names I just named all played in that game, and we're a big part of that game. And, we lose 14-13 obviously to a great Maryland team. So, they were on track, at that time. And like I said, we kind of got derailed, but now they're seniors. We've gone through some changes. We've had some exits. We've had some additions. Our freshman class is tremendous. I'm really, really impressed with our freshman class this fall. And it just seems like, again, that vibe and that feeling that we have when we do have really competitive teams is there. So our fall went really well. We played St. Bonaventure and Team Canada up in Toronto, and played well against both of them. So I was just pleased with our attitude. We talk attitude, effort all the time, and I was just really pleased with how hard we competed in the fall, and then our attitude really on and off the field. So just really excited for the spring.
You talk about the senior class and how they're growing. They grew from their freshman year. We were talking about it before with that 2018 team, how it was really a 3-4 year progression to make that ultimate jump into championship weekend. With the current culture of the transfer portal and everything, how do you continue that option of like wanting to grow guys and grow groups freshman year into senior year? How does it change? Has it changed at all for you and how you try to get a team to come together?
Hasn't really changed. I'm not a big transfer portal guy, in a sense of I'm not. We've used it. I think out of necessity in a couple positions here and there. We have TJ Sheehan transferred in from Denver last year, but we recruited TJ and he went to Denver. It was far away. He wanted to come back home, and we were the other choice at the time. So I don't really look at that as we went in the transfer portal looking for someone. It just kind of he would have been in this class either way. And again, we'll certainly go to the portal if we have to. I think when it's necessary. But I do believe in recruiting kids and try to develop them. And this senior class, like I said, has been that class that we've really developed, and I think we're to a point now where we feel really confident in where we're going with this group. But I do think it's important that you do stress to kids that you do believe in them, that you empower them with confidence, and really give them an opportunity to excel and to grow. Some kids take the opportunity, and unfortunately, some kids don't. We have lost a couple kids, but really more to their choosing and their doing. But like I said, I'm still in the mode of recruiting and developing more so than hitting that portal. So, again, I really like our team right now. As I said, we had a really great fall. Sometimes when you bring in a class, I look at Blaze Reardon's class, John Maloney. In 2013, they came in and they joined Lyle and Miles and Ty, and sometimes a freshman class can really spark a team. And I feel that way with this freshman class. every one of the kids in our freshman class right now are lax junkies. They're down shooting around all the time. They're really, really into it. So it's kind of put a little bit of a push on some of the other guys to do the same thing. And again, our senior classes like that, and now our two middle classes are kind of feeling that and kind of progressing in that same way. So it's good.
It's infectious, right? It just kind of grows.
Yeah, unfortunately, positive energy and negative energy are both infectious,
Yeah.
and when you have the positive energy, that we've had so many years, you can see what you can do with a team again, 2018, even, 15, 14, where guys were not recruited, by big time schools, but they put their mind to it and they work hard and they come together as a group. With positive energy is great. When you have a negative energy, that's when that spreads too, and that's when you're 5-10, and and you don't have quite the year that you think. Yeah, and as a coach and then spectators on the outside and people on the blogs, not everybody understands what goes into a team and the inner works of a team and why you're successful and why you're not. A lot of people just look at results. But results are sometimes again an indication of what's going on with the team.
You mentioned developing players and people, and I never had a chance to talk to you about this last year, but you coaching against Siena coached against a bunch of guys on that other staff that were all players that you had coached, and then your staff is a bunch of former UAlbany guys. What was that moment like?
It was really proud, honestly. Like, again, the fact that we're producing coaches that are going on to coach at the highest level, for me, as a person, the fact that I was able to recruit great young men and kind of again empower them, but also give them the idea of coaching and wanting to be in coaching. I think again we kind of talk about our culture. About how much fun we have at practice and the atmosphere that we create around our team. That makes me feel really good that you are creating a really positive atmosphere that guys want to stay in the game and they want to be involved. So that moment was just kind of was kind of surreal in a sense when I got in and instead of shaking hands, we got into a circle and hugged each other. And it was, all 8 coaches were, myself, obviously not an Albany player, but obviously the 7 of them, former players. It just was it was kind of surreal, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of all my coaches. I got Eric Wolf at NGIT, Jordan Levine at LIU, Craig McDonald at Robert Morris, Liam Gleason at Siena, Merrick Thompson. Again, my whole staff has been my former guys, and and Liam's staff is former guys, like I said, and Jordan has Troy Ray and Sean Eccles is coaching with Wolfie, and so the list goes on, and it's just again, it's really it makes you feel really, really proud.
Developing a nice coaching tree there, Coach. It's cool to see. I want to ask you about, we were talking about Connor Fields in college before, but I want what he's doing now in the NLL, and he's playing with Rochester. He got unprotected. He probably felt like he's got a chip on his shoulder, which I feel like he's been playing with his entire career, whether it was at UAlbany, once he got into the pros, proven like this small little guy can be the guy. And I feel like he's getting a chance to be the guy in Rochester, and we're seeing what he ultimately can do even at the highest level. What have you seen from him now professionally?
Yeah, I agree with the kind of chip on your shoulder. Connor's has been pushed away a little bit in some places. But I think again, when you empower and you make, someone feel confident, they really can take their game to another level. And I think again, that's what we did with Connor. I think you see the switch from, I don't think the cast was an awful fit for him, but it just wasn't the right personality fit. Now he's with the Archers. Coach Bates and I are very similar people. So he's really thriving with the Archers, and then, same thing in Buffalo. I think they're just other good players on the team, and he wasn't necessarily, the guy there. But now you go to Rochester, and their coach is putting 100% confidence into him, and then you can see what he can do. And again, Connor's just such a playmaker, and they said in all the sports he's playing, hockey, box lacrosse, outside lacrosse, he just gets it, and he's slippery and he's just very skilled. So it's a lot of fun to see him really, to really kind of again just be at the top of his game right now, and I'm excited to going to his wedding in a couple weeks here, New Year's Eve. So I'll see him in a couple weeks.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Hey, good thing it worked out the schedule in the NLL. That's that's a dicey spot New Year's Eve in the middle of the NLL season.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, I'll finish off with this because I know you're getting ready for a World Championship run with the Haudenosaunee team as well coming up this summer. You had mentioned before you guys a tryout weekend. What's it like to go through this process again, and also knowing kind of the feel and the importance on this World Championship event for the Haudenosaunee and for world lacrosse as a whole as you look ahead, hopefully to next?
Yeah, it's a big moment, and I think the games being in the States are huge, because I think we'll get a lot of really good coverage, and again, just the experience of being in a world game setting is just tremendous. I mean, I think one of the things that we did learn from 2018 in Israel, we've just we got we started a little bit late here, but we've been doing a lot more as a group. We've been doing Zooms and we've been doing scouting stuff and talking, but it's just the energy just kind of felt a little bit different this weekend with the team than it did the last time. Not for better for worse, it just felt different, and I think when you look at it, we have two of the best players in the world on our team. I mean,
Yeah.
Lyle Thompson, and Zed Williams walked into the tryout with a long stick in his hand, and he is just such an impressive kid. He really changed the whole energy of he wasn't there Saturday because he was busy with something, but he got there on Sunday, and it just changed the whole dynamic of the team. And you can feel, again, when you talk about like building the team and creating continuity with him. When the guys, we have a good amount of guys who played in 18 who are now kind of in the peak of their career. Lyle, Randy Stats, Audie Stats, Brendan Bomberry. We have Zeddy Williams, Warren Hill's a tremendous goalie. So we really feel confident that we have a group of guys that can compete. For a gold medal. Last time we played, we hung in there with USA for most of the game after some travel issues, and then we lost to Canada by a goal. In the pool round, and Wardo had 27 saves. So we were right in that game. So we feel really confident going into it that that's going to be we're going to be in a dogfight with those teams. And like I said, I just love the energy and I just love being around the group. To be honest with you, it's just so much fun. It's a unique group, and really looking forward to getting out there next summer.
Wait. So Zed Williams going to play pole?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. We've known Zed Williams to do is to be an elite offensive player. What's he like with a long pole?
He was pretty good. He's pretty good. I think I go back. I recruited Zeddy back in the day. Him and his brother Zach actually. They only have 13, 14 guys on their high school team. So they, he played every position, basically growing up. So, and he's a lacrosse player, he understands the game. But he's such a physical presence, and he's a big guy, and with that 6 feet. So it was so wild to watch him cover Lyle in practice, and the two of them going after it. So you're sitting there saying, okay, here's Lyle and Zeddy, but Zeddy's playing defense. It was really cool. You just got to sit back sometimes and just kind of like, try to put your mouth, close your mouth, and just because you're just in awe of watching what those guys can do. So it was tremendous. And honestly, it's so selfless, and that's what someone like Zed Williams is about. And Lyle will play any position we ask him to play, but he's going to play attack because that's where we need him. But
right.
Zed to come in as one of the best offensive players in the world, and say, I'll play defense because we need defenders, and I can do it. It's just such a selfless, that's a team guy. That's the guy you want on your team. That's somebody you want leading your squad. So I know Coach Tiffany is just thrilled to death to have him at his end, and they have a really unique relationship. And obviously Lyle and I have a great relationship, and I do with Randy as well. and Audie and those guys. So again, it's nice to have familiarity too. Like Lars and I both coached last time, so a little bit of continuity, with the staff as well. So it's gonna be so much fun. Like I said, it's a great again for lacrosse. We're getting to such a point, and now it's in the States, so people can see it and have access to it, and hopefully really can blow this thing up after 23.
I can't wait to see you guys this summer. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see your UAlbany team coming up here this spring as well. Coach Scott Marr, thanks so much for the time, man. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you, Travis. Appreciate it. It was. Thank you.
I still can't get over the fact that Zed Williams could be playing with a long pole for these World Championships in 2023. That story is incredible, and I don't know how we haven't seen video, or if there is any video of Zed Williams versus Lyle Thompson in matching up in that tryout for the Haudenosaunee, but we need video of that because that is unbelievable. The fact that we've got two of the best offensive players in the world, and you got a long pole in one hand and Lyle Thompson going against him. I would pay a lot of money to see how that turned out. So shout out to Scott Marr for sharing that news with us, and kudos to Zed Williams. I mean, talk about being a selfless teammate to do that and be one of the best offensive players in the world. He was a PLL MVP, and now he's picking up a long pole to play for the Haudenosaunee for his nation, and because that's what the team needs. I think it tells you everything you need to know about Zed, a coach's dream, and things we've heard a lot from about Zed Williams in the past, and I think it continues to ring true. So thanks to Scott Marr for sharing that. Can't wait to see the Great Danes in action this spring as well. Well, moving on here on the show, we continue our watch parties here on Lacrosse TV. They debut every Wednesday morning starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. They replay starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Lacrosse TV. A couple of weeks ago, we had Harvard's Morgan Cheek join us as part of our Ivy League watch party. Looking back with him at a memorable game from back in 2016 when Harvard took on Duke. It was a top 20 matchup at the time, taking place on Long Island at Hofstra. Duke, of course, had Miles Jones, high expectations for that Blue Devils team that year, but Harvard got him that day. A memorable game for the Crimson and a memorable game for Morgan Cheek. Let's take a look back at that game with Morgan. Here's my conversation from our watch party from a couple of weeks ago. So let's finish off this watch party with the game from back in 2016. Harvard and Duke, a neutral site down on Long Island. We've got one of the players from Harvard from that game, Morgan Cheek, joining us now. Morgan, we were just talking before we got going here. That was a fun game for you guys. Just what do you remember about the lead up and everything to playing Duke on Long Island?
Yeah, I just remember it really feeling like a really big game, even though it was early in the season. It was, I think that game was, there were a few games that weekend, all at Hofstra. The crowd was pretty wild, at least compared to what we had experienced up to that point. So kind of getting in there, feeling that big game environment. I just remember it being awesome and a lot of fun, and kind of the atmosphere in the locker room leading up to that was pretty remarkable, and definitely something I won't forget for a while.
Yeah, you mentioned it's part of a doubleheader there, and it kind of had like an NCAA tournament type of feel for the environment and everything around that game. You guys going in had won 3 overtime games. You guys were like the cardiac crimson at the beginning part of that year. Like, what was it about that team early on?
Yeah, I really don't know. I think if you had asked anybody on the team, we would have rather just won, in regular time and not gone to overtime 3 times in a row. But we were definitely maybe a little disorganized. I don't know what it was in the early season, but we kept just finding a way to win. And we had so much talent that year that I think having those first 3 games gave us a lot of confidence in our ability to just kind of find ways to get it done, especially going in and playing a team like Duke, who, every year is so good and so consistent. So while it was definitely not the way we had designed things, I think going into a big game like Duke, it was actually pretty helpful in terms of confidence building.
Yeah, so spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't watched the game we're about to show. No overtime this time around. You guys got off to a great start. What was it about the rhythm in the second quarter? I think you guys scored 8 unanswered goals at one point in that first half. What was it about the rhythm that you guys found offensively that it just all clicked?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we kind of just played like we had nothing to lose because, we were certainly the underdog. And to a degree, I think, you spoke about the overtime. I think we were just kind of sick of getting into that position where you needed to get a goal late to keep yourself in the game, or, tie it up to send it to overtime. I honestly can't remember like what the cadence was with those first 3 games and how we even ended up in overtime. But I think we just played really loose, and like we had nothing to lose. And, good things tend to happen when you do that.
I think it's so interesting. We've been doing these, and you talk to everybody in every game. Sometimes the game just kind of groups in with the rest of a season. Sometimes it stands out. I get the feeling this one kind of stood out. What was the moment that maybe you think back and remember about this game and about the experience down there on Long Island beating Duke?
Yeah, I think there are 2 that stand out for me, or maybe 3. Like, pre-game, heading out of the locker room, the energy was just ridiculous. Like, I remember having so much adrenaline, and usually I'm pretty calm pre-game, but I remember having so much adrenaline. It wasn't nerves. Like, I don't think we were nervous. I think it was more just like we were so excited for that big game environment, and everybody, myself included, you could kind of look around and see that exact feeling in other people that you had yourself. So that was number 1. And then I think number 2, I remember kind of at the end of the game, I can't remember if it was Steve Jahelka or someone else who, was carrying the ball across the midline, and it had just stripped someone sort of at the top of the box. And that was kind of the last few seconds of the game. And, we all started celebrating and running with, I think it was Steve who had just made that play. So that was a pretty awesome moment.
Yeah, I mean, you ended up with 3 goals and 3 assists, and you're right. You guys caused a turnover at the end. It was just like the icing on the cake for the day. I remember thinking about that team. You guys are 4-0. You just beat Duke. You're, I think, at that point, top 10, top 15 in the country. What happened for that squad? Because it felt like you had everything going, and it just didn't ever kind of all come together throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard to put my finger on it. I feel like that's when I think you talk to people on that team, I think we all kind of have the same feeling. Like, that was a pretty special group of individuals, and for whatever reason we couldn't put it together. I can't say specifically really what it was, but we just never really found, like, I think that Duke game was like a perfect example of what we could have been as a team. And for whatever reason, we just never found that again. But, that's kind of sports, right? Like,
Yeah.
you hit that peak every once in a while. And, that's why the teams that win the national championship win it, is because they're able to hit it time and time again. And, for whatever reason, we just weren't able to do that.
I tell you what, you did hit it again at the end of the year in that semifinal in the Ivy League tournament against Brown, because you knocked off Brown, and then they go on to play in the Final Four that year.
Yeah.
That was your 9-goal game, right?
Yep, that was another good one.
When you had a couple of games throughout your career, whether it was the double-digit points against BU, that game against Brown, where you just, like, it felt like you caught fire. Like, would there be a time either before the game, during, where you just felt like, all right, this is going to be my day or my night?
I actually don't know if it was anything like that. Like, I think, I always felt like I could do that. I felt like I was a pretty good dodger. I could get my hands free. I could score in a lot of different ways. And, part of playing attack and playing lacrosse is being opportunistic and taking advantage of your chances. And like, I think in that Brown game, you know, we had Devin Dwyer, obviously, he's an unbelievable player. And I think there was a lot of focus on him, his ability to feed. He had really turned into a great, not just a good scorer, but like a great scorer that year. And I think there was a ton of focus on him, and a lot of focus on our middies, guys like, you know, Joe Lang and Sean Mann and a number of others. But you know, in that Brown game and some other games, I think it's just a matter of when things fall your way and when you're in good positions to take advantage of those opportunities. Like, I don't think it was anything about like, this is my night. I think it's just kind of, you know, a degree of luck, I'll say.
Just everything falls into place and it works, and you take advantage of those opportunities. I think that's probably more of it than anything, just taking advantage of the openings you get. I'll leave you with this. Do you have a favorite game from your Harvard career?
The Duke game is definitely up there. Yeah, I think the Duke game is probably number one for me. That was pretty special.
For all the reasons we just talked about, and we're gonna show everybody here on LSN that game here coming up in a few minutes. Morgan, thanks so much for taking some time here. It was fun to catch up with you. Good luck with everything, and we'll catch up sometime down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Travis.
So as a reminder, you can watch our watch party every Wednesday. New one debuts 8 a.m. Eastern time on Lacrosse TV. Then again at 6 p.m. Eastern time. It replays also on Wednesday on Lacrosse TV. And if you miss any of them, don't worry about it. If you want to go back and watch some of our past ones, you can check them out on our YouTube page. It's now at Watch Lacrosse TV on YouTube. We've got playlists built, so if you want to watch them, you can watch them straight on through. You can skip around, see some of the interviews, rewatch the games, all the content available now on our Watch Lacrosse TV YouTube page. So check those out. This week, we've got the Big Ten watch party. We've got some great guests. Grant Ament, Penn State coach Jeff Tambroni, Ohio State's Nick Myers, Rutgers coach Brian Brecht, all joining us as part of that Big Ten watch party on Wednesday. So make sure you tune into Lacrosse TV starting at 8 a.m. Eastern time Wednesday. But that's all the time we have for Lacrosse Now this week. Thanks to our guests, Morgan Sheik and Scott Marr once again. We will see you right back here next week.